Today in this video, I'm going to show you the extreme gullibility of flat earthers and how they have zero effort put in to determining whether or not something is accurate. So this is a video by a guy who's on Facebook who calls himself Jack McLean, and he has a lot of videos like this.
What don't we understand about the moon? I honestly love this question. Truly, if we're being real, almost everything we've been told about the moon is just theories.
When Jack puts that music under his video, he's doing it for a very specific purpose. It's to make the people more susceptible to the lies he's about to tell and the deceptions that he's putting into his videos here. Then he goes on to say that everything we know about the moon is just a theory. In fact, most of the things we know about the moon are facts. Theory is a completely different thing, which is a completely fine thing to have in science. He thinks it's a guess. These things that we know about the moon are not guesses.
You know, we're told that the moon is reflected from the sunlight, yet moonlight is measurably colder in its own shadow. That isn't a reflection. That is a complete contradiction.
And here we see the gullibility. He did not do that test himself. He just watched a video by somebody else and blindly believed it completely. So he's saying that everything we know about the moon is just a theory, and here he comes up with something that somebody else gave him that he blindly believed, didn't check himself, did not even look to see if the testing setup was done well. Well, I did it myself. I personally measured the temperature of the moon, and I did what flat earthers don't do. I did scientific controls. So when a flat earther goes and measures the temperature of the moonlight, they'll go under a tree and they'll measure the temperature, and they'll go out where it's not under a tree and measure the temperature. Well, the tree is trapping heat, so it's warmer under the tree than outside where there is no tree above. So yes, you would expect it, not due to the moonlight cooling it, but due to the tree trapping the heat. So I did it where I set up a shadow that was a vertical shadow. And you can see in the video here, it was several feet away from the table where I was doing the test. So there's nothing above the table trapping the heat. And what did I find? I found that very slightly, the moonlight portion is warmer. Now, whether or not it's completely due to the moonlight or not, I don't know, but it was definitely warmer in the moonlight. So there, I've done it myself, and flat earthers, they do a terrible job of it. Now, here's the big kicker. Energy is transmitted through light. There's a relationship between the wavelength of the light and how much energy is transmitted by it. So for moonlight to cause something to get colder, it would have to remove energy from that object, meaning it would have to have a negative frequency. Now, this is not possible. It's just a ridiculous thing to even think about. But if you did want to think about it, you could say that it has a negative frequency, therefore it's traveling backward in time, and that somehow when you go to I love this part. The light is hitting the surface of something, taking away the heat, and moving it to the moon in the past. That's what flat earthers are actually claiming when they say moonlight is cold. This is ridiculous. If that happened, it would be a violation of the first law of thermodynamics, and every scientist on the globe would jump all over it to be the first one to get the Nobel Prize.
We're told that it's 238,000 miles away, yet we can zoom in with crazy detail like it's part of our sky and not space.
Being able to zoom in on a very large mountain far, far away does not mean that it's close. And also, we've measured the distance to the moon with many different methods. And one way that you can do yourself, you don't need to trust anybody. You can just bounce radio waves off of it and time how long it takes. And then you too can figure out exactly how far away the moon is.
You know, it controls the tides, but not the lakes and the ponds.
Tides on the ocean are caused because the water sloshes around back and forth. It moves a long distance laterally. You don't have that option in lakes or ponds. I don't know, if you had a little pond, where would you think it would move to? But it does happen. There are lakes that have tides. For example, in Minnesota where I live, Lake Superior has very small tides. If you were to look it up, if he were to just look it up, he would have found out. But no, he's gullible and does not want to learn reality. He did not do his own research. Again, remember, he has made a bunch of statements here. None of these yet are questions.
It emits light, but we call it a reflector. We say that we landed on it in 1969, but we can't return 50 years later, because we lost the data. Come on.
No data was lost, in fact, none at all. And the reason why humans haven't gone back is because Congress hasn't approved the funding until more recently. But we have gone back in the sense that we as humans have sent probes to orbit it and have sent robots to roam around the surface of it. So we've been back to the moon. We've got photos of the moon landing sites. Now, whether or not we went back to the moon is not a debunk or a falsification of having previously gone to the moon. For that, you would need evidence, which of course, because he's super gullible and didn't do his own research, he has no evidence. He just blindly believes what he was told to believe by his Papa Flurf.
He then went on to comment, "You don't believe in dinosaurs because you believe in the resurrection of Jesus." Yeah, because the resurrection of Jesus was documented by hundreds of eyewitnesses and changed the course of history.
So this is his standard of evidence, being documented by hundreds of witnesses. Now, the names of the hundreds of witnesses in the Bible is not stated. So fine, go and accept that as his standard of evidence. The names are not necessary. You do not need to be able to go interview and speak to the people who saw Jesus. That's his rule, okay? Over 600 people have been to space, have orbited the Earth. And you can go interview most of them today. Most of them are still alive. You can go talk to them. So that is the standard of evidence he set, is unnamed witnesses in a book that he cannot go interview. We've beat that. We have over 600 people that have been to space. We have a large number of people that walked on the moon and were eyewitnesses to walking on the moon. In fact, some of them are still alive today, and you could schedule an interview with them. Charlie Duke does interviews regularly. Maybe you could contact him and say, "Hey, I'm interested in finding out the truth." But no, Jack McLean, I don't think is interested in finding out the truth. He has a pre-selected conclusion and he's just looking for confirmation, and he's happy to accept whatever unsupported claims his Papa Flurfs give him.
Dinosaurs was introduced by a handful of Freemasons in the 1800s after conveniently finding a full T-Rex in perfect condition.
And here we see the flat earth gullibility on display here. He says it was done by a group of Freemasons. Now, whether or not any of the people that discovered the first dinosaur bones were Freemasons or not doesn't matter at all. But to the flat earther, to the gullible person, the fact that somebody said it was a Freemason, true or not, is all they need to dismiss evidence. In reality, if something is found by a Freemason or a non-Freemason, it doesn't matter. If you think it's wrong, you need to have evidence for it being wrong. It is completely irrational just because somebody is of some particular group that you would dismiss the evidence. That is so gullible, so indoctrinated of them to do that.
Buried for 65 million years. Yet we can't find a fully intact human that's over 5,000 years old.
Well, I got good news for you, Jack, because the oldest fully intact human is Ötzi the Iceman from 3,300 BCE. That's more than 5,000 years ago. And that was what he stated, so he'll have to accept that. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's just a diversion tactic for the deceivers to use to say that somehow because dinosaurs have been found that are a certain age old and humans haven't been found that are that age old or over some particular arbitrary length of time, it doesn't matter. No, they're not related. The fact that you can or cannot find humans for any particular age that you desire doesn't change the actual evidence for the dinosaur bones. For that, you would need to actually address the dinosaur bone evidence, which, of course, they can't do.
I, by all means, do not claim to have the answers. In fact, I'm happy to accept that I am wrong.
And now we will see if he's truthful. I've shown that he's wrong. Will he be happy to accept that he's wrong and change his position, or will he reject it? Jack, you can let me know, mctoon@mctoon.net. You are free. You could come on my channel live and you could declare that you were wrong about all these things. That would be great. You said you were open to that. Now, listen very closely to what he's been doing in this very next section here.
But asking these questions don't make you crazy. It makes you awake.
And there's the bait and switch. He wasn't asking questions. He was making bold claims that were wrong. And he's just wrapping them up and trying to say, oh, I'm just questioning things. No, you're not. You have provided the answers, the wrong answers, and declared yourself to be right. Also, you've said that you're fine being wrong. So will you actually be fine being wrong? Let's find out, Jack.
Because the real truth, it's not found in textbook or institutions. It's written in creation and in your spirit.
Or you could just go out and, do it yourself. You could go dig for dinosaur bones yourself. You could go learn how to be an archaeologist and develop some skill in that field. You could go do an experiment to test the temperature of Moonlight by properly controlling your setup so that you're not introducing bias in the setup. But no, you didn't do any of those things. You just are walking around pretending to be asking questions when you're making statements.
So whether you believe in the globe or the resurrection or the BBC, just don't stop asking questions, because deception only works on those who never ask.
And he didn't ask.
And obviously for the sensory reasons, this was just for entertainment, and I'm as fictional as a dinosaur, baby.
And that ending is what the grifters put on the ending so that they can get away with the lies that they tell and still get paid from the platforms that they publish these things on. So anyway, thank you for joining me. I got more of this coming up. Be sure to subscribe so that you can see when I crush the next flat earther.